Hi. I would like to start by asking you to do something for me. I want you to think about yourself for a moment. If you were a machine, what would you be? Would you be a toaster with lots of different settings that cater to those around you? Are you a printer that, aside from the occasional ink change, is reliable and can consistently deliver the requested output? Maybe you're a recycling plant that takes in what people don't want to use or think about anymore and repurpose it. Or are you a sleek and sexy new iPhone X who has been updating and working out bugs to now present yourself with pride? I want you to think about what you've done, what you're grateful for, your likes, your dislikes, your habits, your relationships, your race, sexuality, ambitions. What makes you who you are? There are so many things that make us up, that have gone into building our machines, that affect the way that we put out information after it is brought to us. We are each so unique in our experience, and the more we get to know ourselves, the better we will be able to understand why we are the way we are and build on that to be who we want to be. A point of reference in my journey was this past year when I had the opportunity to go to the Student Diversity Leadership Conference. I was one of 6 social justice-driven delegates from my school. Before going, I definitely had my preconceptions, and I wondered that because all of the attendees were there for the same reason, that we wouldn't have much to learn from each other, and we would just be reaffirming each other's beliefs. I had been hyper-focused on self-care and introspection, and I wanted to validate those practices by assuming a negative outcome. But while at the conference, I realized that in these practices, I had lost sight in the value of empathy. This was a turning point for me. I learned that I could be on a journey for myself while still having a greater purpose. I was able to think about the values that I align with and how I can offer those to others through my actions. This could mean listening to and building a platform for someone else, or taking initiative and using my confidence to my advantage. And that I can use my practices of consciousness and self-care to help others who aren't comfortable with those concepts quite yet. Now, on a more relatable note, no matter our interests, race, education, each of us is shaped by our upbringing. As many people have grudgingly admitted once they've reached a certain age, I'm beginning to sound just like my mother. Of course, you may replace mother with the title of your choosing, but it's true that as we grow up, it becomes evident just how big of a mark our parents, guardians, friends, teachers, early role models leave on us. Maybe you can tell your mom is a toaster too. Seeing life through the lens of self can be beneficial because, as obvious as it sounds, everything we experience is in relation to ourselves. This means that the socially repellent practice of self-centeredness is reasonably natural. In an interview with Anil Anandswamy, the author of a book exploring neuroscience and the mysteries of identity through the lens of Alzheimer's, he shares his insight in saying, "We look out on the world from behind our eyes, and we have a sense that everything we perceive is somehow private to us. This doesn't mean every experience, positive or negative, is all about us. I can tell you it isn't. But our engagement begins with what we know to be ours, our actions and reactions, and working to utilize those to find control of ourselves in contexts that are not within our control." During my mission to understand and define myself, I asked myself many questions similar to the questions I asked you all just a few minutes ago. If I were a machine, what would I be? What makes me who I am? And in an attempt to answer that, I came to a very important realization. I am not a machine. And I think you'll be relieved to know that you are not a machine either. I'm not asking you for toast. Some of you may want to be a toaster right now because that is the condition you were raised to believe. But the privilege comes in knowing that it is a choice, that we are capable of diversity of output. This brings me to the word agency, meaning the ability to perceive that an action is the consequence of one's own intention. And with realized agency, we don't have to fall into patterns or narrowly define ourselves. With agency, we create options for ourselves. We open ourselves up to the world, to each other, and to ourselves. Of course, we may go through life cruising comfortably on autopilot, or, as David Foster Wallace has called it, our natural default setting for constructing meaning from experience. But if we do choose to use consciousness and logic and creativity, we can become active participants of the lifelong journey of becoming self-aware. As I said before, we are each rooted in our personal experience, and so our individual philosophies will be different. But we may look to others to help us along. For example, Ralph Waldo Emerson states in his essay The Oversoul, "Every man's words who speaks from that life must sound vain to those who do not dwell in the same thought on their own part," illustrating how our difference in perspective separates us. And we may look to the Buddha or the poet Rumi, who have expressed beliefs that we are all the same, that our shared humanity brings us together and equates us in the most fundamental of ways, and that, again, the only thing that sets us apart is our perspective, our view of the world. Whether we adhere to that belief or prefer to accept that we are not each other and will never be each other, we can be aware of the fact that either everyone is different or holds a different perspective. I am convinced that understanding this permanent difference and accepting a life of being misunderstood by others, as unwelcoming as it sounds, is actually a really great state of mind. Because by committing to learning about ourselves and each other, we are the closest to achieving understanding as possible. We can take everyone in our lives knowing that they are different from us and see them where they are, for who they are, and understand that if they aren't as far along on their awareness journey as you are, that your perspective allows you to be empathic and let your understanding fill the gaps of human inconsistency. My favorite part of learning to be misunderstood by others, of knowing that no one will truly understand me because they are not me, is reminding myself that I am me and I can work to understand myself. As opposed to being disappointed by others not fitting inside my head, I have been empowered by the realization that what I want or believe should be done with my own power, and that I have much more power than I had previously enabled myself with. This is a lot. I know this may feel intimidating, but if you are willing to join me, I propose 3 steps. The first, set aside time to check in with yourself daily and respond accordingly. This means pay attention to your body. Make sure you're hydrated. If you feel off, get to know that feeling and hopefully figure out why. Work to understand how people affect you. Learn about your sad moments and your happy moments and take note. Practicing this in my own life, I have made things like drinking lots of water and getting more sleep priorities because I can rely on them to improve my well-being. I've also been more confident openly expressing my emotions as long as they're a basis for self-learning. So if I am overwhelmingly enthusiastic or lethargic, I can look to the factors in my life, diet, and subconscious that influence my actions, and the factors in the lives of the people around me to understand their reactions. The second, actively create or take opportunities that will challenge and expand your sense of self. Whether this means asking for a promotion, auditioning for a play, taking time off to recenter or shift your focus. Don't be afraid to be afraid for a while. As I said before, the Student Diversity Leadership Conference led me to reflect and motivated me to share what I had learned. My biggest challenge since then is being able to hold on to the values of advocacy, individuality, communication, and progress as my environment changes and I'm confronted with obstacles. There are many times when I don't feel I'm acting with total honesty or conviction, when I set my priorities for other people and not for what I would like out of an experience, when I feel ashamed and I stop healthy communication with my family, friends, and teachers and end up struggling more. This happens weekly, if not daily, but even the small reminders to push myself or to take a break or to reach out for help are challenging my sense of self and consciously taking control in order to impact my experience in a positive way. And thirdly, remind yourself of our differences and respond with appreciation. Engage with the people in your lives. Practice seeing things through another's eyes to make our world a little more personal and to better our cognitive empathy. Most recently, I have allowed this practice to influence my relationship with my parents. I am getting older, and I've started being able to see my parents as people. living, breathing, emotional, strong human beings, not solely my parents. I'm hearing the stories of both their young adulthood and of their newest work environments. This engagement has been a major turning point for not only my self-reflection, but my relationship with them as I am getting to learn about and love two people in new lights. Now, in the fashion of keeping it real, I need to recognize the concerns and doubts many of you may have when it comes to taking life advice from a 16-year-old who is still in high school and doesn't have to pay a mortgage or even schedule my own dentist appointments. But my grounds for speaking on this come with being a human being. This is not an adult thing or a teen thing. I am talking about a human being thing due to our shared existence. And I believe we can improve our shared existence by receiving misunderstanding gently and increasing a love of learning and acceptance. Thank you.